Hey, everybody, I'm Jon Swartz. Thanks for being here as long as you have been, and we will try to keep this moving as fast as possible. I'm with TechStrong Group, which is part of a company called the Futurum Group, which is a market analysis company. So for about the last year, I've worked at this startup, essentially. Before that, I was a journalist at Dow Jones, USA Today, Forbes, London Independent, etc. So last year, I've been looking at AI agentic in particular, and I find it interesting. Before I introduce our esteemed panel, I was just going to mention what we're going to talk about. It's basically how do we drive business with data, and I think it's interesting. The timing is so good right now, and bad, I guess. There are two competing forces going on right now. This, I think, is arguably one of the biggest weeks in terms of tech announcements I've ever seen, and I've been doing this for about 35 years. Just was at Google I/O. There was SAP, Dell, Red Hat, Microsoft Build. Apple's coming out with WWDC in a couple of weeks, and they're going to drive or try to catch up with AI. IBM a couple of weeks ago. So you have all these competing forces jumping into this market. At the same time, you have polling that now shows that there is the biggest concern among IT managers isn't cost so much as it is data readiness. So you've got two things, like something has to give. There's this overwhelming amount of AI agent news coming, in which most of it has been developed and used internally versus in the real world, versus these fears of what could happen if the data is compromised or if misplaced or misused. So under that context, I'd like each of my panelists to introduce themselves briefly. So we'll start with Usama.
Okay. Usama Fayyad. I run the AI Institute at Northeastern University. I'm also chairman of my own company, Open Insights. Worked with many startups, including in the Bay Area and in Seattle, and worked with large companies like Yahoo, Microsoft, and Barclays, where I was their global chief data officer in London and New York.
All right. Now we have Matthew.
Matthew Cox. I'm a chief data officer at Fusable. I think I just clocked 8 months into this role. I'm responsible for our products, our data, and our engineering. And so, I have the luxury and the privilege of leading our efforts around data and products to not only enable more value within our existing customers, but also to deliver new solutions and services to expand the market we have available to us as well.
Okay, if I was John.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jon Schelble. Seems like a typo, but 27 years in the financial industry. Most recently, the last 4 have been with Wells Fargo. I joined to help set up the customer analytic platform with some recent changes that we're making, moving to a domain model. About 8 months ago, I took a new role leading data operations and controls for consumer data, which focuses on data quality, testing, and then the incident management portion of our data pipelines and making sure that we're treating that with timeliness and efficient resolution.
Okay, let's start off with this question. I guess it's for all of you. We'll start with John. It's basically, what is your number one business challenge for your data program that's tackling right now? So in other words, the number one business challenge your data program is tackling right now.
There's lots. I would say our migration to cloud, which is now on a timeline, and it's being executed in line with data center closures that have a very definitive date, which are in line with that, or migrations. We also have, like many companies, lots of legacy data assets on aggregators that can become a little confusing as to your migration strategy, what's duplicate, what needs to move to cloud, what don't you want to move. And so we're right in the midst of that right now, having migrated our first application late last year. And now we're progressing into a number of other applications that we'll be migrating over the next 18 months.
Let's go, Matthew.
Yeah, so at Fusable, we have a lot of disparate data sets today. So we have a number of, let's say, siloed data that's driving independent and individual products. And so what I'm leading an effort or a strategy to what we call our connected data strategy, which is to begin to pull together these various data assets together and align them around some specific entities. So we think about, most people here be familiar with company, right? There's a very typical entity within MDM. But we also have assets. And for assets, for us, those are tractors, with John Deere's here, John Deere tractor, if you can wave his hand, we talked to John Deere earlier. Construction equipment, semi-trucks, trailers. And each of these independent, disparate pieces of data have various flavors of data around assets and companies. And so our connected data strategy, its intent, or what the actual headline would be, is that we're able to use connected data to improve the breadth and depth, multidimensional view of these type of entities. And with that, not only serve greater insight, but also look for maybe new use cases that we can deliver to our marketplace.
You mentioned John Deere. That's interesting because I was at Carnegie Mellon a couple of months ago. Yep. The number one app that I came across in terms of using robotics, that was the one company they mentioned as off as in a, and they were trying to develop different things like fruit picking. I mean, just in terms of hand use of robotics, it was very interesting. It was kind of contrarian.
Yeah, they're doing some amazing things at John Deere, and they're a great partner and customer with us, for us. But for us, it's really about taking multiple pieces of insight, drawing them together in a standard way, and then be able to deliver both the depth of insight, but also the breadth of new use cases we feel can be drawn from that. And that's probably our biggest strategy and our biggest challenge today we're trying to conquer.
All right.
So the biggest, I'll speak to two categories. One is at the Institute for Experiential AI, we have a AI solutions hub whose job is to work with a lot of companies on helping them figure out not only how to solve AI problems, but also how to learn how to do it themselves because of the educational side of it. And I would say the following, whether it's at the Institute or through the work of my company, Open Insights, what the market doesn't seem to understand is every AI problem turns into a data problem almost instantly. And that's a festering problem because people have built warehouses when they've built them, if they work, to service human needs, insights. So they're all about aggregation, summarization, visualization, exactly the opposite of the type of data that you need for algorithms, which is very detailed, very granular data. A lot of the companies have no know-how of how to manage that type of data and make it usable, whether by algorithms or by humans. And this is the biggest challenge.
That's interesting you say that, because a friend of mine is helping put together a panel in New Jersey for next month involving Fortune 100 companies and their approach to AI. And their knowledge base is so fundamentally at the ground level, they are absolutely terrified. They want an all-in-one solution, or they're going to depend heavily on consultants. I think when you just go back to look at the IBM announcement a few days ago, it was overwhelming. But I think the people who probably were the most encouraged by were their consultants, because it's just like putting together a jigsaw puzzle.
So I've been in the AI and machine learning business for 30 years. In the last year and a half, I have given talks at maybe 60 or 70 board of directors meetings, where essentially, and these are kind of banks, both large and regional, insurance companies, all sorts of healthcare companies, and so forth. Total confusion between what the board is trying to understand: what is this AI? How does it fit in the business? The execs team is confused, and the engineering teams and others are pushing for, well, we gotta try, we gotta do this, we gotta do that.
What about the rank and file, the people at the lowest?
Rank and file are a mixture between curious to completely scared and frozen to totally resisting change. I'll mention one public use case. You can find it on our website at the Institute, is with the Bangor Savings Bank, which is not a huge bank, 8 billion in assets. We did one project with them around the recommendation engine to gain customer trust. They liked it so much that the CEO basically decided they wanted to train the whole company, from, in his words, the receptionist all the way to the board, on what is AI, how is it relevant to them. So we helped them create internal AI academy, and we believe in the experiential approach, meaning the only way to learn is to learn in the context of doing.
With a pragmatic
So
approach.
essentially, they pre-bought 5
Correct.
projects that we would do with them, and we do the instruction as part of implementing those projects. And that's the only way I find that it sticks. Like, you can give all kinds of lectures to people who are in the workplace. It's in one ear, out the other. They go back to their job. But if you show them, here's how you do your job today, here's how you could be doing your job.
Like anything, yeah.
Sticks completely.
Yeah, I think Cisco is going to start this mandatory upskilling program, which I think is useful. It's good. But I don't want to be remiss, but just a show of hands of those folks who might want to ask these 3 gentlemen a question. I just want to try to budget the time. So, because all right, so I'm going to plow ahead.
But let's say one thing real quick, though, because I think you hit on an important piece.
Oh, go ahead.
We've talked a lot about tech, we've talked a lot about data, but I think one of the biggest challenges in front of us is organizational change. And how do you prepare an organization for this type of new phase we're moving in? And how do you prepare your customers? I mean, because it's one thing, I can go deliver agentic AI, but are my customers even ready to absorb that? Are they even ready to go on that journey? And so how do you begin to measure the receptive nature of your customers or the marketplace for what you're trying to deliver? Those are peripheral things that I think are just as important as what is my foundation, what's the frontier, what's my tech, what's the agentic AI, is really the peripheral pieces of it. Is my org even ready? What does that look like? Are my customers ready? Is my market ready? Or am I going to jump too quickly and really miss the mark?
That always seems like to be like this basic disconnect that's going on right now with all this talk about agentic AI and what it can do for a company. And in a sense, we keep hearing from the companies that make the announcements or their internal use and how much more productive it is. It's always 30%, by the way. And yet, when I asked them, and I think you may have done this early, when I asked the company to give me an example of someone from outside of the company who's using it, I know it's early, but the hype never even comes close to the reality. And I'm just wondering, in terms of the timing of where agentic AI is, I know it's early, but do you think, presumably, within the next year or two, it's going to pervade? And I'm wondering at the speed, and that includes things like coding, et cetera, in the use of coding, AI for coding. What do you put a timeline on? I want you all to answer the question.
Sure. I think a year to 2 years, and my operating number is about 80%. I think you can get 80% acceleration. I don't believe you get automation, but you get acceleration. And if you're being pragmatic, we believe you always have to have the human in the loop. You have to be able to check what this thing is producing and provide it with feedback and corrections and so forth. Agentic today is mostly buzz and hype, but there are a few applications where it's truly agentic and it truly works. I mean, part of the usual problem is the minute the word agentic AI came out, every startup out there relabeled itself as agentic AI. And every large company says we're using agentic AI. Most of them are kind of using traditional single task type stuff. Nothing wrong with that. It's just separating the buzz from the reality.
Right.
So I think, so first of all, agentic AI is here. I mean, if you're not investing in that in the next year, right, you're missing out on an opportunity because you've got to begin to cultivate the organization and how you're going to begin to support, model, move forward. But I think from my perspective, we're taking a more methodical approach, right? Like we do with any other product. So we're looking at, in the use cases that we support, we're looking at personas. How do we define the individuals and the actors and the roles that are playing specific roles within a use case, within an industry, and within a market? And so you look for we're mapping the inputs, the outputs, what are the decisions they need to make, what are the boundaries of the conditions that they need to work within. And then we're marrying up agentic AI into how can we help those personas fulfill and accomplish the needs of their role. So we're taking really a methodical approach, not just saying, hey, we've just come out with a new whiz-bang agentic AI. We're looking at how do we place that into the role and the function of the world that our customers exist in today, and how can we marry that to make them more successful? And in the process of that, trying to continue to build trust with our customers, because especially we move into this new phase of agentic AI, we're gonna need them to trust us because we're gonna start making decisions on their behalf. Our products will make decisions on their behalf. Trust is a very big part of what we need to establish now prior to even delivering those first agentic AI apps.
So I want to ask John a specific question. So by 2027, for example, what role will an agentic system play in your business, and which part of the business would be most prominent? Will it be most prominent? Is that
So the bank is a big place. So I only have exposure to my area of the consumer bank. I don't believe it'll be autonomous. Large bank, it'll be a partner to you. And I kind of view that as being a force multiplier. Like you're going to be able to do more things because you're going to spend less time doing the stuff that isn't really value add. We're just entering, from my perspective, sort of the education phase, which is we have an agent available, and it's not available to everybody. It's a playground environment, and it's really to teach how to use the capability, getting people to think about problems that they would like to solve in their current role, and beginning to sort of expose it to the organizations that are most likely to have benefit and use it.
so? With this pressure, especially from the top down, probably from the shareholders, or the C-suite, to move faster, how do you maintain trust? That's I would think would be a conundrum.
There's been a lot of talk on trust today. I kind of break it down to, if you assume that trust is earned, it's not requested, and it's really fragile, like when you lose trust, like it's hard to get it back. That's how you think about it in a human relationship. And if you're equating agentic AI to being just equivalent to human, you're going to have the same characteristics, which would be, I think about how I build trust. Like, do I understand the person and their motives? Do I understand what they're trying to do? And do I have transparency to what is occurring, like on some frequency, right? That's how you build trust over time.
Right.
So in some way, agentic solutions in some way are going to have to model that same sort of sense. And then with controls, you can also validate from testing, obviously, like on the backside. So I think you can move as fast as you can maintain that equation.
Okay. Either of you want to?
I mean, trust. So there's responsible AI, there's AI safety, and there's trust in AI. They get confused multiple times. They are very different. The trust, to me, it's tough to achieve it, but we find that one of the key ingredients to getting AI trusted is something that is almost completely missing from the very large models. So here's what I mean. We work with a lot of physicians and surgeons and so forth in healthcare. They have zero trust in whatever LLM, large or small, that we put there. But if you actually tell them, this is a junior member of the medical care team, and you give them the ability to actually correct it. So as it sounds like it might frustrate the heck out of them, but once those physicians are actually doing corrections and saying, no, this is not right, or, oh, you got something I missed, that feedback starts making it their own baby. And that's when they start trusting it. Now, I say that's missing in the large models because it's almost impossible to train up the large models. People fake it by doing RAG pipelines and so forth. In reality, this is why I love the small models, because you could actually do retraining and feed it back, and it can capture the knowledge. And we've got some physicians who are basically saying, oh my God, this could be my legacy. This is capturing everything I know, capturing the way I like to do it. And I'm beginning to trust it more and more. And they start using the word trust.
And you think about it, in the medical profession especially, there's just like a lack of, there aren't enough doctors and aren't enough dentists. And so you see these kind of not low level, but kind of heavy tasks that can be performed that are safe in terms of things that they can't do now. I mean, it's just like getting an appointment or getting like just regular checkup.
There's been several studies, amusingly. Some of them I don't necessarily trust, but basically they're finding that a lot of patients, especially older patients, when put against kind of ranking their experience with their care physician versus a chatbot, and they're told this is a chatbot, they actually like the chatbot a hell of a lot more than the physician. So
Do they give a reasons why? Or?
Yeah, well, I mean, the reason why, in my opinion, is because the physicians, exactly what you said, they are overloaded. They don't have the time of day.
Yeah.
They want to just get to the next patient. They're under pressure to do a million different things. A chatbot will sit there and kind of chat with you, ask you, and actually patients love that.
A better bedside manner in a sense.
Very much better bedside manners.
Oh. So let me ask, Matthew, I was going to, can I ask you, you go ahead.
Well, I mean, I'll just answer that real quick. So from a product standpoint, we have two key tenets basically within the organization. One is trust and the other is value. We talked about value a minute ago, which is how do we methodically make sure we're delivering value to our customers. From a trust standpoint, what I found that's really meaningful for us as we move forward is beginning to expose to our customers more and more of what we actually do from a data governance framework standpoint. So we're beginning to give them more of the, not the secret sauce, but the framing pieces of what are we doing to both earn their trust and keep their trust over time, and actually starting to give them measures and metrics that we are actually watching to say, listen, this is what we're doing with the data that you're receiving from us. So one venue is helping educate them more, exposing more of what we're doing. Another one is I have leaders within my organization who are specifically purposed with the role of protecting data and the privacy of data. So they're watching our new products, all of our new data efforts. So we're constantly keeping tabs. And I think number three is with all of our customer engagements, we're enabling sales, marketing, customer service to help continue to foment. These are the things that we're doing to help protect, enable, and bring trust to the data and the products we're bringing to you. So it's multivariate, right? We're trying to touch this theme in multiple arenas. And I think that's how we can both establish, but then also maintain trust over time. Okay. And certainly as we build toward our future of more agentic AI.
So we only got a couple more minutes. I wanted to ask Jon this question, or whoever, but maybe Jon. What new skill or mindset do you need to hire or cultivate to deliver business outcomes in the agentic era?
Prompt engineering. Like Mix, we employ a lot of data analysts that help navigate identification of data, building requirements, writing stories, right, to be delivered. And when I think about having that skill set in an agentic era, like the ability to interact and work with that prompt as a check, as a validation, is going to be extremely powerful and not something we have in the organization today.
So I have a few specific areas I think we're targeting. And this is important also about getting the organization ready, right? You've got to get the skills in place. And number one, we're looking for cross-functional expertise, right? Because agentic AI touches people, processes, and platforms. And so you've got to think about all the areas you're going to touch. Number two, skills with what we call bounded experimentation. So be able to increment within a framework, right? And that ability to process that effectively. Number three, because we're focusing on use cases, real world use cases, think prospecting, underwriting, sales and marketing, you're looking for more SMEs, subject matter experts, right, that are in those workflows, because we all know exactly what is happening with each of those personas within a use case. And I think number four, from a technical standpoint, we're looking for individuals with experience in multi-agent systems. You've heard about orchestration, looking for, today we talk a lot about.
By the way, orchestration is like the buzzword that's being used in almost every press announcement.
It sounds a lot better than workflow, right, or key steps. So it's a much preferred word. But also looking at, the worlds of the one API to rule them all are over, right? So you've got to find expertise with, microservices architectures, because you're going from maybe 6, 10, 15 apps to maybe 100, 200, 600 apps, and be able to orchestrate and manage a multi-agent system. That's an experience you're going to have to either cultivate or acquire as we move forward.
So we're going to have like a super, do you believe like in the concept of the super agent that runs the other agents? And then when do we reach the era where the human reports to the agent? Is that like conceivable in the next couple of years?
I don't think in the next couple of years.
Sooner?
It's considered. No, I don't think it's going to be that fast. I think it'll be a time.
Okay.
I actually think it's pretty feasible. In many areas, it's pretty feasible because there's a lot of stuff that managers do that's very tedious, robotic, repetitive. So having almost just like the doctor case, right? Having a very patient manager who provides you feedback and is willing to tutor you and is willing to take the time may not be such a bad thing.
Yeah.
And, managers in reality should be more like servants than bosses, and that the chatbots are probably better suited.
Yeah, that's change management for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
But you want to talk real quick? You want to?
Yeah, I have a hard time seeing that
I do too.
in the near term.
Okay.
Where I am.
Well, hey, we've run out of time. Thanks so much for your insight. I appreciate it. Thank you for listening, and we hope you have a great day. Thanks.
Thank you.